All right, so welcome to the Los Angeles user group number 20. So today we have actually pretty exciting agenda. I've been looking forward to this one. And so we'll kick off with the future of Sitecore. So I'll walk through some of the changes happening in the Sitecore ecosystem, the Sitecore product mix, capabilities, areas of focus, priorities, bit of a strategy, and then we'll dive into our breakout session. So we have a session on AI, the usage of AI assistant with OrderCloud by Kautilya. And then we're going to learn how to migrate content into XM Cloud the right way. Lessons learned. All righty, let me go ahead and pull up the presentation. Needless to say, guys, so as you know, for those folks who are here for the first time, so as we go through the presentation, feel free to ask questions, raise your hand. Martin, Amir, if you guys can help me keep an eye on raise hands while I'm presenting, just let me know if anyone has a question so I can pause. I'm usually pretty bad at watching those things when I present. And yeah, don't wait till the very end. I want to make sure you guys get all the answers or the questions answered. So whatever questions that you came here with, that's the benefit of being on these events live instead of watching them on demand later. All right, let's see. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right, let me know if you guys can see the green splash slide. All right, so I'll touch on 4 major areas. So in the next about 15 to 20 minutes or so. So we'll take a look at the changes in the product mix. So there's some changes happening in the product mix. Some products are going away. Some getting merged, rightly so. I think that's my personal opinion, though. We'll talk about some of the AI capabilities that are coming in, some areas of focus for AI, some areas where we can expect some developments happening coming out of Sitecore. We'll talk a bit about developments and new things coming around with XM Cloud, and we'll talk about XP and XM Cloud and what's happening with XP, how that is going to play with XM Cloud, where the focus is going to be, and so forth. So we'll jump into the product mix. So when Dave O'Flanagan took over at Sitecore, it was clear a lot of changes were going to happen. So Dave is product focused. He's agile. He's more technical. He looks at the products more closely and the capability set. Being a product guy, so lots of changes started happening really quickly. So this is the product set, the SaaS product set that we're used to seeing right in the past. One of the interesting things that one of the presentations that we recently saw from Sitecore actually no longer had the hexagon. So there seems, I'm not sure if that's a sign, but it seems like they're moving into layers, which is an interesting representation. Kind of reminds me of a logical architecture diagram, if you're familiar with those. So representing products along their tracks as layers, which is interesting. It's an interesting logical view of the MarTech stack. But for now, since we're familiar with the hexagon, we'll continue using those. So that's the product mix as we knew it originally, right? So this has been the mix for the SaaS products for some time. In fact, at some point, it got even noisier. And the reason why I say noisy is because when we started looking at capabilities internally, we realized there's a lot of overlap between some of the products. For instance, discover and search, right? At the end of the day, it's still search, right? It's products. A product is just a type of content, right? It's a template. At the same time, Content Hub 1 got off to a shallow start, and the future was uncertain there, and it's it kind of got into the space that was extremely saturated. So I had some concerns about that one, and in fact, and that's why I call this picture noisy, right? There's a lot of noise here. It seems like a lot of moving pieces here, but it's really just some of these are just adding noise, in my personal opinion. Now, it actually got even noisier later. with, what is it? The DX in Minneapolis or Boston? I can't remember now. But then the new hexagon got added with AI, and that made no sense whatsoever. It wasn't a new product. It was a capability that was being developed across all products. In fact, every product group was developing their own AI roadmap. So this made absolutely no sense when it got presented. So when Dave got in house, started cleaning up. So here's what the product mix looks like now. You see a lot, a few things are missing. Let me go back. So AI is gone. It's not a product. Discover, search, and Content Hub 1 are all gone now. So while Content Hub 1 remains to be a product, it's uncertain what the future is going to be in terms of support, right? For those who got on it, the future of the development, but it is no longer present in the product mix that's being marketed by Sitecore. Now, Discover is also gone. Search is going to remain. So search has a generic search. So that was a refreshing update. Again, product is still a type of content. So why not just have search and have products being searched just as any other content? And then OrderCloud, what's interesting, there's also a change in the OrderCloud space. Although it is remaining a product. In fact, what's happening is there's a separate business unit that's created around OrderCloud specifically. So that's a business unit dedicated specifically to commerce. And I think that's actually the right move. And the reason being is, having been in the commerce space, and particularly I'm actually curious to hear your point of view on this, because you spent plenty of time in the commerce space. It is different from the content space, isn't it?
It is completely different.
Exactly. So Sitecore, as a company, as sellers, as account managers, those who were used to the content space, they were having a hard time sort of wrapping their head around the concept of commerce. They weren't able to really speak to it or demonstrate the value of the product, or focus on the things that are important in the commerce space, that are different from the content space. Engagements and projects are significantly more complex in that area. So that's actually a refreshing change to me. And I think that's the right move. You got to have people focused on OrderCloud. So not only is it good for the company, Sitecore as a company, it's also better for clients. Now you have dedicated folks who are not only on the seller side, but also on the product side in general, who are dedicated to commerce specifically, right? So they're not generalists, they're focused on commerce. So as a result, you should be, as a client, expecting better service from that perspective. All right, so that's the product mix. Now, the XP XM products, they're still there. So they're not going away. In fact, I think it was in Dublin earlier this year when they opened up and spoke about the roadmap that's been laid out for XP. And I believe they called 2030 as the roadmap, as the planned roadmap so far, meaning there are things planned for XP on the roadmap up to 2030. Right. So that was the message. It doesn't mean that they're going to deprecate the platform at 2030. It's just, right, the roadmap. That's actually pretty far out, if in terms of roadmap, if you think about it. We're in just 2024. That's 6 years out. So that's a pretty good run. Right, in terms of planning out the roadmap. So we'll talk about what we can expect, from coming to XP roughly at a high level versus XM Cloud in the upcoming slides. So let's talk about AI. So I borrowed a couple of these slides from Mo, so I got to give him credit for these things. So there are 3 areas where we can expect innovation happening, right? And that's how Sitecore is looking at it. So one is empowering innovation with AI. Right, so this is where AI is going to help businesses gain ground, right, in terms of analytics, insights, and so forth. Customer experience, that's another area. So that's split testing, personalization, experience orchestration, right? So automation using AI, right? And then the operational side of it, the cost saving side of it, productivity and cost savings, right? The operations side of it. In fact, on my end, I've seen actually quite a bit of investment on the right side here already made, and companies are just tapping into the left side. And If Sitecore is listening right now, it's probably not a secret anymore, but if we could get more innovation on the left side in terms of growth, personalization, experience management, I think that's going to help everyone, not only Sitecore as a company, but also the companies using the product. It's from my personal experience, it's a lot easier to find budgets for growth than cost saving initiatives. So let's take a look at some ideas. So here again, borrowed from Mo, a slide with some ideas that we can expect, right? So endless. So integrations, that's an easy one, right? So there are some interesting things to talk about. Generative AI, Gartner's been talking about self-negotiated contracts with integrations and dynamic schemas for years now. Recommendations, that's what we usually think when we think of AI assisting in personalization, right? Recommendations for content, for experience, for components, right? So all sorts of recommendations, right, that can be applicable here. A/B testing and split testing, that's going to come to personalize. So that's also, again, automation for recommendations, for variations, right? The biggest cost, or the biggest cost item for scaling personalization is content creation, right? Maintenance and testing overhead, right? So those are kind of the two big ones. So we can expect AI basically democratizing all those areas, right? And those are the things that we can expect from Sitecore as well. Some of the things around content asset generation, right? So some asset generation is already happening, in fact, in Content Hub, right? So some of these things are in some shape or form already built in, but you can now, knowing the categories and how Sitecore's thinking about these things, right? You can start putting some expectations around, right, where you can now see developments. So let's take a closer look at AI. So here's what you can expect on the roadmap for AI from Content Hub, right? So image tagging, video analysis with AI, so that's already in, right? So we already have that as part of the product. If you have Content Hubs and it's your first time hearing about these things, talk to your favorite Sitecore implementation partner about these things. They're certainly there and available. Image-based search, self-explanatory, right? So finding images that are similar to the one that we use. So that's similar to sort of what Google has based on its image search logic. Content and copy generation, that's pretty self-explanatory. Semantic search, that goes into feeding into using AI, Gen AI, as an assistant to search your assets and content that's stored in Content Hub. So that's conversational search experience, right? Similar to ChatGPT, right? Think about it that way. Bring your own AI. So this is an interesting one. So this is sort of similar to what Adobe's done with Firefly, right? So they have a generic AI engine, and they allow companies to bring their own AI layer on top of that, almost as an optional element, right? So if you don't have your layer, you can use their general AI layer that's built on and trained on all the assets that Adobe has access to, right, from their perspective. So there's going to be a similar capability on the Sitecore side. So the devil's going to be in the detail on this one. So I'm curious to see how this one's going to pan out. I think this one's going to be really powerful. If we can combine domain knowledge with general knowledge, right, of Sitecore, so Sitecore can bring something similar to Adobe, right? General model trained on general data. If we can augment that with company-specific content, right? Whether it's taxonomy, terminology, content, internal content, external content, websites, right? Structured, unstructured data, all of that content given in, now that's going to become pretty powerful. Grounded image tagging. This is related to semantic search. This is where we would, and also your own AI layer. So this is where we would use that company specific AI layer to tag images. So we can bring our own taxonomy, for instance, right? So our own language, our own translation rules, for instance, right? And those will be the rules that will be respected for image tagging. Right now, tagging is free for all, right? There aren't really any governance limitation or validation around these things. Deep search, similar to semantic search, right? So this is getting into structured and unstructured data, going deep with Gen AI. And then this one is pretty exciting, ingesting brand guidelines. If you haven't seen the reel about ingesting brand guidelines, Google a video. I think that's already, I think I've seen it public somewhere, but they first showed it at SuckCon in Dublin. There's a video of a demo of a concept that shows what that's going to look like. Ultimately, in addition to ingesting content, the AI layer is going to also be able to ingest branding guidelines, right? So for instance, styling, fonts, other business rules, right? Around branding, and then use that to then help generate content, copy, assets, and components, and so forth, right? That's going to be pretty interesting, right? So you can see some things that are upcoming, development and design. So in design, that's the earliest stage, right? So it goes design, in development, then comment. All right, so let's look at XM Cloud. So here's some things that we can expect in terms of focus and tooling updates. Right, so scalability, customizability, compliance, interoperability, and governance, right? So these are generic, but we can kind of break those down, right? So scalability, this is probably going to touch on publishing, right? So scalability and also regional support, right? So this, we can hypothesize of what that could represent knowing XM Cloud, right? Customizability, so they're going to continue, which is a refreshing area of focus, continue focusing on the ability to customize the platform, right? So webhooks is likely not going to be the only way that we will integrate with XM Cloud. Compliance, that's been an area of focus for XM Cloud for some time now. It's going to continue in that direction. One of the recent changes that happened in the XM Cloud space is that now Sitecore is signing BAA agreements, right? So HIPAA compliance agreements, right? So that's a new one. That was the biggest I would say barrier of entry into the healthcare space for XM Cloud. Now that the doors are open. Governance in terms of content and assets and interoperability. So that's an important one, right? So composability revolves around interoperability. So we can expect most likely a lot of developments happening, my guess, in the Connect space. That is as a result. So Connect working closely with XM Cloud. So some changes on the pages. On the tooling side, Pages, which is the WYSIWYG editor, currently only fully supports Next.js, right, for headless development. Although you could really build a headless implementation using any language. Right? You could use PHP if you wanted to. You just simply won't be able to use Pages, editing, authoring capabilities, inline authoring with the WYSIWYG on top of that, right? So Sitecore is now doing is changing the Pages to be framework agnostic, right? So now is roughly probably by the end of the year. That was a rough timeline when we can expect some additional updates, hopefully sooner, coming out on this one, where Pages would be framework agnostic. So not only Next.js, but it will support other frameworks as well. In fact, you could use any framework of your choice, because what it sounds like, the Pages app is going to be built, or the authoring functionality is going to be built on top of the DOM, right? So the final HTML, instead of using framework specific functionality is the case. Components, so we'll see more flexibility, more control in the components tool, and we already see that, right? So components tool is growing in terms of capabilities, in terms of granularity of control over styling, layouts, right? Certain capabilities, making it pretty sophisticated. Site management, site factories for rolling out sites. There's going to be a marketplace. So some of the things that were mentioned that could be examples of the marketplace modules: brand creative assistant, let's say, AI component generator. That's a pretty exciting one, right? Translation accessibility. So this is similar to probably the marketplace that any SaaS platform has, right? So for instance, Contentful, they have a wealth of modules add-ons that you can add to the platform. So it looks like Sitecore XM Cloud is moving in the similar direction. Low-code integration, it's probably talking about Connect, and that's along the lines of interoperability. Testing, that's split testing in terms of capabilities being added. So split testing is coming to XM Cloud, and the AI assistant is also expected to come to XM Cloud. And we already talked about HIPAA. All righty, so quickly, I'll touch on the XP to XM Cloud. So, without jumping too far into the content space, I'll leave that, Martin, I'll leave that one for you. I've already mentioned that we have a roadmap till 2030, right? We can, one of the things that were mentioned actually early, I think that was at SubCon, now thinking back, in Dublin, it was mentioned that Pages is going to come into XP. So that's going to be interesting. So if you remember, those who worked with Sitecore for a while, we had Horizon, right? That's the early stage of Pages. Then Horizon got removed from the XP space and it became Pages for XM Cloud, right? So it became exclusively an XM Cloud tool, and Sitecore used that as a way to add value for those users choosing to move into XM Cloud. So Pages going back to XP, or Horizon going back to XP in the form of Pages, right? So it's actually refreshing. That, to me, that really shows the commitment around delivering value through the platform, giving a freedom of choice for those folks, for those companies who are not ready to move into SaaS yet, right? So, and that also, again, put some power behind the XP's roadmap, right? So Dave's message was that Sitecore's focus is going to be on the area where they're strong in, which is content, which is 100% right. Sitecore is well known for its content capabilities. Adobe, right? Assets, personalization, maturity, right? So optimize the experimentations of flagship product. Sitecore is content. Sitecore rules content. So that's where the focus is going to be. And in terms of platform, it's going to be XM Cloud, XP XM, and Content Hub. So those would be the products where the majority of focus is going to be. Now, XM Cloud is going to remain the flagship, and that's where a lot of focus is going to be from R&D. And it's likely we're going to continue seeing the trend of developments happening in XM Cloud and then trickling down to XP, right? But what that also means is that XP is going to start catching up to XM Cloud in terms of architectural choices, right? And what that means for XP clients and for Sitecore implementation partners is that the barrier of entry from XP to XM Cloud is going to continue decreasing, right? So that's actually pretty exciting. Now, migrations take about the same as a redesign, right? Minus the design portion of it, right? It's basically a rebuild of the website. If you're not already on headless, even if you are on headless, there's still some changes you got to implement. So that gap is going to continue to decrease. Now, it doesn't mean that you got to wait to move into XM Cloud. If you're on XP, there are massive operational cost savings that are available with XM Cloud. So if that's something that's important for you, that there's no better time than now, right? However, for companies that that are budget sensitive, who don't prioritize operational cost savings, and a lot of times it just depends on where the cost is routed, right? So if that's not a factor, the usability is not a factor, right? The new tooling, the advantages of the new tooling, of all those benefits, if the ROI still doesn't make sense, then there is no reason to move away from XP, right? The roadmap is there. And then finally, so this last slide, I'm going to shamelessly pitch my session at Sitecore Symposium. So in that session, the composable CMO, leading transformation in the DXP era. So I'll cover the process and methodology for selecting tooling for the MarTech stack. So we'll talk about the differences between XP and XM Cloud, how to select the right tool. Is hyper-personalization the right tool over Optimizely experimentation, right? So all these questions will be covered in that session. So if you're attending Sitecore Symposium and you're curious to see alternatives are out there and what the process, the recommended process looks like for selecting the methodology, which, by the way, I think I've been fine tuning that for over a couple of years now. So please join the session. It'll be very interesting. It'll be fun. I can tell you that. Alrighty. on that note, I'll stop. Does anyone have any
Yeah.
questions?
Is Sitecore not going to compete in the headless CMS space then?
Unlikely. That space is
Crowded.
Yeah, it's so saturated. It's almost, if you Google headless CMSs, like a list of headless CMSs, it's like a sea of platforms out there. And there's some specialized one, there's generalized one, right? Contentful is extremely popular content stack, right? So there's content AI is gaining ground, right? So there's so many of them, and what's been happening is they picked a niche to differentiate in, right? So there was a developer friendly headless CMS, there was a content author friendly, there was a one that's focused on bloggers, right? There was one focused on commerce, right? So everybody sort of picked their niche, but then they started outgrowing the use cases within those niches, right? And then headless CMSs grew and got mature, and now they're actually tapping into the DXP space with experience management capabilities, right? So because they've just outgrown the simple use cases that they were really good at. So the space got so mature and so saturated. So just trying to get into that space is just really hard right now. It's like it's the red ocean. So it's unlikely we're going to see really anything around Content Hub anymore.
Yeah, the price point also is a bit of a challenge. I mean, it's hard to compete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when Contentful gives away, just light years of, of capabilities ahead of Content Hub 1 for free, it's really hard to compete with that, right? So the barrier of entry is pretty high there.
Agree.
Yep.
So then question about the pages.
Yeah.
You said pages is going to XP. How
Oh,
comes? Are they going to bring
Martin, you
pages?
sound like you're far away,
I probably am.
like on the other end of the room.
So
your mic is turned away.
okay, so the question is pages. Are they going to kind of open pages for extensions? Because this is a big thing that we're missing these days. I cannot even integrate an external DIM into XM Cloud simply because I don't have capability to extend the pages application. And without that, I am not able to master the editing experience for that.
That's a good point. So parity has been the focus for pages about a year now. Parity to Experience Editor in terms of capabilities. So it's still not quite there yet. I mean, it provides additional capabilities that Experience Editor doesn't have, but it also doesn't have some things that Experience Editor had, like extensions, right? Customization. So that is going to be there. I know that is on the roadmap. What the timeline looks like, I'm not sure, but I remember talking about these things with Roger. Comment. All righty. All right. So looks like no more questions. So without further ado, Kautilya, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Vasily. Let me share my screen. You have disabled screen sharing, so can you enable it? Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. Share my screen. Share. And present. Come on.
Yeah, much better.
Move this away. All right. So excited for this one. This was my pet project. Started back in January or maybe February. So a little bit about me. My name is Kautilya Prasad. I'm 5-time Sitecore MVP and mostly working on e-commerce projects with Sitecore XMC and XP. But I know both XP, XM, XC, and OrderCloud, and the Sitecore Commerce engine that was there. So this assistant that we are going to talk about today is a broad term. Like assistant means a lot of stuff, and I'm going to differentiate what does it mean in the context of commerce and how we integrated with OrderCloud. But before that, let's talk about what everyone is talking about, AI, and what happens when everyone talks about AI is there's a lot of hype generated. For things that you won't even need AI, people are recommending AI. And there's a case study out there, like what is the real use case of AI? And how do projects succeed when they use AI? And it's a pretty simple rule there. Like, what do you expect from AI, first of all? You might aim so low that you won't get the ROI. And you might aim so high that you will fail and not recover the investments. So it's very important that when you're dealing with AI, you need to have your vision and the expectations aligned. Your first step should be to mimic what a human can do. And then move from there, move on to like, how can I make it better? What more can I get? Same concept as crawl, walk, run. And of course, at any point you have any questions, please stop me. I'll be happy to answer. So what is an assistant? We heard about chatbots. Yes, chatbots can answer your questions, look at FAQs and answer your question right away. But what chatbots cannot do is they cannot perform an action on your behalf. Let's say you want to ask something about a product on the website. Hey, can this product do this, do that? And the chatbot can look and say yes, no, based on some description on the page. And then you want to buy that product. That chatbot cannot do that because it's not wired to call APIs on the back end to perform an action on your behalf. So that's where the assistants come in. It is based on top of chatbot. You can talk to it in natural language, any language that is supported on the framework, on the platform. And then you can tell it to do actions on your behalf. The way you define assistant is you give it some instructions, prompt engineering. And then you define, okay, if the intent of the user is to purchase a product, do this, call this API, and extract the information and convert it into objects and pass into the API. So that's the power of assistant. It can also do real-time sentiment analysis, look at your order history, look at what were the past conversations, and tailor the experience for you. It's really powerful when you use it with the right tools, right APIs, and right intent. Okay, and we know what is Sitecore OrderCloud for all those people who are new to Sitecore OrderCloud. It's a B2B, B2C, B2X marketplace development platform. It allows you to build customizable shopping experience, and it's really powerful in terms of delivering value to the customer. And one thing I want to talk about OrderCloud is people are not aware that it is one of the best products out there when it comes to franchisee. Because when you are running a franchisee model, you have multiple franchisees that serve as a seller and a buyer both, because you might be having extra utensils, extra things that you want to sell to other franchisees. So you are buying from someone and you're selling your stuff to other people too. And that is where OrderCloud really stands out as a marketplace. Okay, and now why use an assistant on the e-commerce websites? People are talking about AI, hyper-personalization, and this fits in that narrative where it can offer a co-pilot kind of experience to the customer. When you walk into a store, like a physical store like Apple or some other store, you have people there, agents there to answer your questions. Not every website has that experience. If you're on a PDP, there's a long, PDP's descriptions are long. There's so much information there, and you want to quickly summarize, you want to find something. That's where a co-pilot will be beneficial for someone who's looking for a quick summary or quick information. He doesn't want to scan the entire page. That's where also the customer experience is moving, because not everyone has the same attention span as before, and it's changing every maybe say 2 to 3 years. People want information right away, and that's where this assistant can help. Now, once you offer that experience, it can help you in increasing sales. We can see, I'll have slides later for that one, how it helps you increasing sales. And then the other aspect of assistant is the internal operations in commerce is so huge. It's a separate team of its own, someone managing catalog, someone managing promotion, pricing. And that's where this assistant can offer improvements in productivity. Your promotions team might need to create the same promotion again and again, or may be creating duplicates. So the promotions assistant can check, hey, you already have this promotion. Why do you want to create it again? Or do you want to modify this promotion to optimize the management of promotions kind of thing? For catalog, you can have, can you show me the price of this product on this date for this customer, for which otherwise you need a backend query or SQL query, and people to be a little technical. Otherwise, you have to go through so many screens and find the answer. So it's going to make it more efficient. Same thing on the customer support side. For many B2B companies, it is complex returns process. You have to go through so many loops and finally create an RMA. So this assistant can help you resolve your returns or maybe create an RMA on the first contact by answering questions configured in the prompt engineering, checking your sentiment, how happy and unhappy you are, and offer discounts, offer store credits, and in a way try to gauge why are you returning. The same things that you have a customer service, you have to call and say, hey, I want to return this product, this is the reason, and they try to offer you promotions and things like that. The assistant can do it for you. Right, so how does it help in increasing sales? So on the right, what we are seeing here is one of my assistant that I built for one of the website. I just asked, can you find me some speakers for my room? And it's recommending some speakers and say, okay, and then I have further question, does any of these have Bluetooth? And it says, yeah, these have Bluetooth. And then, okay, tell me the price. But it's basically offering one more channel of purchasing to the customer. Not everyone will need it, but someone will need it right now. And in a couple of years, they will start picking up. So you will already have platform that is offering you future-proof integrations. So the assistant can connect to your search engine, gather the information, and run intelligence on top of the results to narrow down the results to exactly what you're looking for based on the conversation. So that's a feature that is not available right now in search right away. Contextual search and narrowing down, removing some search results that are not applicable. And then it can be developed in any language that the platform supports. And once you find the product, you can check out, and all those conversational commerce can run.
You know, one of the things metrics I've seen about AI, conversational product search like that is search engines, even those that are AI powered, like Algolia, for instance, or some Sitecore search for that matter, they're about 75% accurate in terms of providing results, where Gen AI powered or AI powered conversational assistants like this are about 10% above that, so about 85% mark on accuracy.
Yeah, and that's important. See, going from 75 to 85 is important. Moving on, going from 85 to 90 and 90 to 95 will be more difficult. But then that's where people are working on a platform to make it more contextual, more personalized. And it's not just search. Now, let's say you found the information from search, and now you have to go and look at your past history, what you have bought in the past. It can marry both of the data sets and then generate something more personalized to you to see what you have been purchasing in the past, your persona, your purchasing power, things like that, and then deliver a tailored experience as well. A lot of exciting things happening there. And same thing here. So what it can do is, like I mentioned, like you can look at past conversations, past order history, and suggestions, and then offer everything that's tailored to you, specifically for you. And in the screenshot, we can see here, hey, what is my order total and shipping? You can give you the information and say, shall I proceed to place the order for you? Say yes, and then give the order ID. And then say, hey, I also found a promotion for you before this, and then it applies the promotion for you. So it is working on your behalf. It is not just any assistant that's working for everyone, not a generic one. It's tailored to your needs and experience. Oh yeah, and looking at this um, data point here, this is an IDC business value survey, and they say you are most likely going to get a return of $3.5 for every dollar spent, not right now, in about 5 years from now. So the growth of return of investment is right now is not that great, because if you start now, you're not going to reap the benefits right now. It will exponentially increase after 3 to 4 years. So that's why it's important you have to start now and then reap the benefits when all your competitors are starting. So on the other side, like, why do we need a return process assistant? Like in e-commerce, it's a major problem. E-commerce returns is like huge. There's a dedicated business unit just for handling returns, making sure the customer is happy. And you need to have call centers speaking so many languages, speaking so many things that you need to understand certain aspect of what you call the legal terms and all that. So it is important that we need to cut that basically the amount of investment in customer support, and then move some things that are online, basically like assistant. So you can say, hey, I'm not happy with this product, I want to return it. And then say, okay, I'm sorry, what we like to do, like store credit or discount or full order return kind of thing. So this is another way to improve the return process, and both it's a win-win situation for both the sides. Another one is, like I talked before, is for the internal operations team. Let's say you want to create a promotion. There's some complex value expression in Sitecore OrderCloud. You have to write regular expressions for your qualifications and your benefits. Not everyone is well versed with it. So that is where this assistant can generate those promotions for you by just talking to you in your natural language. So, and it can also check, hey, do I have any promotion that's giving free shipping or anything? Let's say, yes, you have free promotion that's doing all that stuff. So it makes you more efficient. It doesn't have to go through a developer to check, hey, do you have anything from your thousands of promotions that is matching? And that's where I want to like pause and see if anyone has any questions right now.
That's actually really cool. And I have you spoken with Mo?
Yes, I have demoed it to Mo, and Mo and Steve Davis, they are really on board with this. So we have feedback from them. We have to incorporate that, and it's actually on the product marketplace at right now, this assistant, and we have to make some more modifications to it. And the next step is to integrate with Microsoft Fabric or with OrderCloud. So there's a roadmap there.
I think it should be included with the product.
Yeah, they have given us some indications, like if you do this, we can include it. So, so we are working on it.
That's awesome. Sounds good.
Nice. So let's look at what is an assistant, how to configure that. So we used OpenAI for assistant, and we have defined so many assistants. Let's look at one of the assistant. Okay, for this, we have connected to our OC, the marketplace, our own organization. And what we did is, okay, we said there's some instructions. You're a shopping assistant, help me find the best products. And it's a big, long product, say, do this, do that. And then we have said, like, hey, if they want to purchase, do this, call the function add to cart with product ID and quantity as parameter. So we are just configuring the assistant, like, hey, do this, do that, gather the intent, change it into parameters, and call the backend API. And if you look at one of the functions that we want to say, okay, this is an add to cart function. You need product ID and quantity. And so what it does is when you talk to it, it tries to identify what's the product ID using a translation, and then say, okay, how much you need, and then passes it back to our engine, and that is where it can just add to cart for you. So there are so many functions. It can grow as big as you want, but this is how we configure assistants to talk to OrderCloud. This is just a configuration, but remember, if you have to build it on your website, like we have it here, oops, where'd it go? Here, you need to write it in your language. For this purpose, you have written in Next.js. What we have done is use the OpenAI SDK, connected to this assistant, and then for each action, we are receiving response and sending it to OrderCloud. So kind of a middleware. Now, this I'll demo just shortly. Now, so what also happens is you don't have to connect it to APIs. What you have to do is, let's say for promotions, what we did is took out export of all the promotions in OrderCloud and added it here. And say, okay, you are helping back office users in creating promotions, do this, do that kind of stuff. And let's see how it behaves. So Playground is where you can query test it, the assistant. So let me see, I can ask, do you have any promotion that offers free shipping, sorry. And so let's see what it returns. It's going to scan through the file of promotions and say, okay, running retrieval. This is called the retrieval method because I've uploaded the file. Yes, they are promotions. It will list and it will give the details. Although I did not ask it, like, is it active or not? It just tells me, yes, there are some. It didn't check the expiration date. If I say, okay, which are active, it won't return this. So the next step is, can you create a promotion for free shipping? Let's see what it does. And as per the instruction, it should check if they're existing ones or not. So yeah, it says is already available and it offers this and this. Would you like to create a new one or activate this one? So if you'd like to create a new one, please provide details such as what should be the changing conditions, start date, and dates. Okay, I can say, okay, create a new promotion for anyone who has a cart total greater than 200, offer $50 discount. And once I send this, it will ask me, okay, what should be the start date, end date? Okay, and so please hold on, I check this information if there are any promotions. So yes, there are no existing promotion offering this discount. It was offering $100 earlier, something else, right? 200, it was 100, I am asking for 200. So it's asking, okay, what should be the start date and whether the promotion should be automatically applicable or not. Okay, start date or an end date, June 2024. It should auto apply. So with this, imagine if I'm a promotion manager, I have a co-pilot with me and it's doing the work for me in the English language. I don't have to navigate 10 screens, enter data, and check for validation. It's actually doing it for me. So it says, okay, please confirm correct, and then we can create this promotion. So that's for the catalog team. Now let's look at the one on the website. Okay, I can ask, okay, what can you do for me? So what it does is it's trying to connect to the assistant that we had here, this one, and it's going to check this and say, okay, return something. I can assist you with this, finding products, Once you select a product, I can help you through the entire checkout. Let me know what you're looking for. I can put the option. Okay, show me some outdoor speakers. So it's gonna call the search with this term outdoor speakers, because here I think I have search products, right? So basically I need a string to pass to the search and extracting that from my what I'm talking and then returning it. So it returned these many products for me. So I can say, okay, I have these products. So would you like to know the price of any specific product? Okay, yeah, yes. Option 1. We can also add click cards here, which haven't been added. So it's going to check the price for option 1 using the same method we have here. I think check price, get price. And it needs the product ID. So I said option 1, it internally gathered, okay, option 1 has this product ID and sent it back to get price. So here it's 72. Would you like to check out? Say yes. Add to cart, please. And then it's from here, it's more of a conversational commerce. And you can ask questions that what would be my shipping cost, or when will I receive the product, things like that. So one more avenue to create an order. So, okay, so it says, okay, it's added to my cart. If I go here, it should be in my cart. Oops, I need to refresh. That's for the assistant on the website for the end customer. Now, once I have this, so let's say if I submit the order and I want to like do a return. So let's see how we can do that. So these are so many orders I have placed earlier, and you can set start a return. Let's go and start a return for something that was done in June. Let's see what it says. Is it 3 months now? No. Okay, let's say start a return, and I copied the ID of the order. Say, okay, I want to return an order. So it says, okay, could you let me the order ID? Here's the order ID. It's calling and gathering the product information. So it was submitted on this, today's this, which means 76 days ago. Unfortunately, you cannot do this because it's after a 30 return process. So it's denying me, which is what people would call and say, okay, yes. Now let's do that again for something that was done today. Let's see this. Okay, start a return for this one. It's gonna, if I'm gonna show some sort of unhappiness or dissatisfaction, it's gonna give me some offers. Okay, it's gonna retrieve the details and check if it's, yeah, so it was this and it's eligible for return, and then say, okay, may I know the reason for return? Or I can offer you a 10% discount on your total order store credit. Would you be interested in either of these options? So reason for return is bad quality, very poor. And say, okay, let's see what it does. And it's, I'm not telling it to anything, it's inbuilt intelligence talking to me right now. So, okay, would you be okay to keep this product also and get a store credit kind of thing? So it's gonna be offer me a discount, store credit kind of thing. And then it will actually create an RMA for me, and which I can show for something was returned earlier, but essentially it's going to call the API and return process the amount and give it back credit to me. So let's see, returns assistant here. Get order, get checking the order, get the returns details, and whether I need to do a return or not, and then process the return and basically do all that stuff. So this is pretty much what the assistant does, and there is a lot of potential. We are still working on it. And if you want to look at the code, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. whatever we saw on the portal here has to be programmatically called. And for each function, this is where OrderCloud is getting called. Get price is OrderCloud and OrderCloud helper. So every function you define here has to be coded for. So pretty much that it is right now. So happy to answer any questions.
Very cool. Kautilya. Have you guys looked into using Azure OpenAI?
Yes, pretty much Azure OpenAI is same thing as OpenAI, what we have found, like with little minor difference. So, but now we are going to look into like Gemini and something from the Amazon. I forgot the name, Claude. All those, yeah.
That's another
So
one.
it's agnostic, yeah. So the concept is agnostic. You just have to build this code for a specific platform, but the concept is same.
There's Azure AI, OpenAI, you have a lot of control from the security perspective, and then it's a lot easier to tap into other.
Right. And if you see here, there are options to change the temperature. This is lenient, more strict. And then I think this version does not have this. There's a fine tune. You can do a fine tune, like add your brand guidelines here too, so that it sounds like your brand. And that's pretty incredible because I don't think Microsoft AI offers that. And one more thing, in the promotions one, you saw that I just uploaded a file. And the instructions are from the OrderCloud portal, like, hey, these are some examples. These are some examples, you do this. I just copied it from the OrderCloud knowledge base and gave it to it. And I can develop complex promotions used based on that. I didn't have to write all of these. So there were examples from their knowledge base and just pasted it here. And it was working flawlessly.
I was gonna say how you did that. Okay, this is cool.
Yep, I copy paste from their portal and it started working. So it learns immediately based on examples.
That's pretty cool.
All right,
Awesome.
That's it from my side.
That was great presentation, Kautilya.
Thank you.
Hopefully it makes its way into the product.
We are trying.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Awesome. Alrighty. On that note, let's move on to the next session. Martin.
Today I'm going to talk about XM Cloud content migration and the challenges I faced in the recent project I experienced. So I'm not going to share you everything and all the aspects of it, but I want to share at least the most important, which was my approach to it. My name is Martin Miles. I'm also Sitecore MVP. This year is my 8th annual Sitecore MVP award. I do love writing blogs. Over the last year, I wrote 60 blog posts, which is pretty a lot. And I love to present on the conferences and organize user groups like the one you are now watching. These are my social contacts. I would like to emphasize Sitecore Telegram, probably the best way to receive Sitecore news, everything in a very unobtrusive way. So you go to a channel, for example, for XM Cloud, and you see all the recent changes and all the most important news you have. It was a very unmodest self-promotion. With that in mind, let's go to the content migration. Let's think about the actual problem. So let's say your client wants to get a shiny modern XM Cloud, and they also provide you with a legacy database. Let's say this is a database from legacy XP, and in my case, that was something like 9.3, so pretty legacy. There could be some potential way of doing this if you want to play locally. The first would be restoring the backup of XM Cloud database to a legacy XP of the desired version with the content database, but that is not something that's going to happen because in my case, that was 9.3, and it's absolutely incompatible with XM Cloud schema, nor it's capable to handle modern items, such as items as resources, something that was invented in XP 10.1. So therefore, this option is totally not possible. So we can go other way around. We can probably use the old database from 9.3 and try to plug it to XMCloud. But when it comes to SaaS solution, it's not that much possible. Let's think why. First of all, this historical approach also does not apply because we don't have access to the cloud databases. Just that. We can only do something locally, not in the clouds. There's no backup tool, there's no restore tool, there's no UI. Between the lines, I know that there were some cases where Sitecore support managed to get the backup of the cloud database from XMCloud and provide it to customers in case of some emergency. But this is something done on demand, manually, and you should not expect things like that happen. You should only rely on yourself. As I said, databases are not compatible. XMCloud database has its own schema. It was branched from, as far as I remember, 10.3, EXM. They have their own changes. There's also no technical documentation about Sitecore upgrade, or at least I was not able to find that. And the cherry on a cake, there is a Docker, which is the only way you can do XMCloud locally. And as I said, you cannot do it in the cloud, you can only do it locally. Your database basically run in Docker. That brings plenty of challenges. So how would you approach that? I'll talk about that later, but let's speak about migration scenarios. When you do migration of your content to XMCloud, when it comes to the migration itself, there are two potential ways. So first of all, you may face MVC to headless conversion. And this topic is a very separate presentation. I will not cover that. I will talk about what I faced. In my case, the legacy Sitecore instance was pretty old. The client decided to do full redesign. So when redesign is happening, we get a new UI. When new UI happens, there are new renderings. They have their own IDs. You will not have the legacy IDs of the renderings. In that case, I only can do migration of the data sources, and of course globals, and make this content consumable by the new renderings. That would be my goal and objective for this exercise. And also, since the rendering and components are pretty new, I must end up with the mapping document for components. Let's say the legacy component, which used this type of data source, maps to the new component, which has been done with all these component details like ID, path, etc. This consumes this data source. So something like a contract with myself to know that everything is supported. Another benefit of this particular redesign approach was that I can also benefit from all the headless SXA features that are fully available with XMCloud. And it's not just page and partial designs, which are powerful, but in my case, page branches were even more powerful because there was a chance to reconstruct the pages with everything needed. I cannot emphasize how powerful is that. Going ahead, we must do assessment of a migration. Measure it all. If you cannot measure it, then you don't own it. Simply as that. I would advise you to create a content matrix to assess what are you going to migrate and understand the complexity and measure, of course. The best way to do that would be using PowerShell script, and I'm kindly providing the script here. You see the URL to my GitHub gist, which will do an assessment of a legacy system, create you lots of spreadsheets and reports. What I've done from there is I decided to create a three-dimensional report. Basically, this is the matrix you see on the screen. And I decided to go in a creative way. I call it three-dimensional. So you see the rows represent all the pages that are involved in the content migration. The columns, line 1, basically starting from the column C, are all the possible components that we encounter on the system. In my case, that was an instance having 8 websites. They're all different. There was lots of reusable content. These components were shared. All the required information for those pages, like templates, locations, IDs, etc., you can find there. What is most important, the intersection of the rows and columns represent the components used on these pages. This is especially helpful as they can vary per same template. Let's say you have variable number of rich text on a template. that is, let's say, generic page. But what is more important, you see the intersection is a number, a digit. And this digit is basically multi-row cell. I highlighted in red frame on top. So the first line is always the number of the components of this particular component. I mean, number of occurrences of this particular component on this particular page. And below you list all these components. So in my case, there are 2 components here, and there are IDs of these components. So I know like pretty everything about my instance with that. And I also introduced color coding. Green means that the number of components match the found GUIDs. And you see there is one red cell. Red cell means that there are some unreferenced components or some broken components or something that does not match. In this particular case, there were only 11 components, but 13 components referenced. So definitely this is an indicator for us to point attention on this page that there are broken references. I also highlight yellow cells. These are structural components. I know that there is something really big and impressive coming in terms of layout. For Sitecore, we will have universal component for doing these things. I cannot say much at this stage, but I'm very anticipating until it happens. But as for now, we still have to create these structural components. For example, I have split container 70-30. I mark it as yellow, and you see number of occurrences on the page, not to mess with the actual content pages. This is pretty intuitive color coding. It shows me if component has data sources or if it's structural, if it has broken link, everything I want to do. In this particular scenario, there are, as I remember, 8,000 pages and something about 40 components or maybe 70 components, can't say for sure. So this is a pretty huge matrix. So how do I get this matrix? I used AI. The answer is pretty simple. It would be not surprise.
Martin, I have a question. So when you're doing this analysis, like how much time do you spend on this analysis? Because this is in itself is like a huge
You will not believe. You will not believe me. It's only 3 hours.
Really?
8,000 rows, 40 to 70 components. I spent only 3 hours. So the way I ended up with this spreadsheet was I used the PowerShell reports. This is the report I provided the URL for here. And from that report, I used AI. It took me like 70% of the time it took me to generate the adequate prompt to make
that's how it is.
what I wanted, because this also, like, I have fixed, the columns are fixed, the rows, like row 1 is fixed, column A are fixed, like lots of other small improvements I wanted to see in this document is there. You see, there is the column N. There are like, in the top left corner, there are triangle. That's also something very important. I don't remember what was that. I already forgot, but this is another useful indicator which I wanted to point my attention. I need to refer to documentation. What is that? With that in mind, just having this document and using PowerShell scripts will save you a lot of planning. Believe me, it saved me a lot of planning. Let's now go to the tools and look in right-hand side. You already guess which tools I keep in mind. So number 1, XM to XM Cloud Content Migration Tool. The first time I saw this tool was MVP Summit a year ago. A few months later, this tool went live. I had a conversation with Author. This tool is a WPF application, so it's standalone Windows application. The way it works is it looks similar to SIA. As you see on a screenshot, you select what you want to migrate, just content or users as well. You can choose between migrating your on-premise or PS installation into XM Cloud. It will later prompt you XM Cloud credentials, do all these tricks. What is interesting, if you check up users here, it will go and create the users in the cloud portal. So these users will receive the emails. It integrates old with new, and it's kind of nice bridge. However, this does not do convert renderings. So you don't expect this tool to work something like Kazoo does. The migration tool, XM to XM Cloud, it starts only with version 10.1. I believe because items resources were introduced in 10.1, somehow leverages this feature. This is the limitation. There was a promise to expand support to version 10 and to version 9.3. I'm not sure if it is there yet, but as of December last year, that was no there. The other tool is our well-known friend. It's called Sitecore OrderCloud. This one requires on license. You cannot do trial, you cannot see and poke this tool unless you are Sitecore MVP. If you are Sitecore MVP, request your license from MVP program, and then you will be able to set up Razzle. So Razzle will allow you to do multiple connections, and as you see on a screenshot, it will allow you to compare the databases and migrate it. In some way, it is similar to DS and has the same experience. Basically, it was done by the same company. No one did it. And there are some challenges of setting up Razzle, and one of them is that you still have to maintain 2 instances, the legacy XP and OXM and XM Cloud. Are there any better solution? In my case, everything happened in the atmosphere of secrecy, and I didn't have legacy system. I only had the database. That toolset was not an option to me at all. So what should I do? My approach was to find a way how to connect legacy databases to a local XM Cloud instance right inside of Docker. The question is why? Why would I do that? The key idea of this initial approach was residing both legacy and the new content within the same instance. You don't have to run multiple XP and XM. You don't have to bloat your ports or use multiple machines. You don't need to bother with connectivity like you should do with Razzle. You basically have your XM Cloud instance and have multiple database. So if you remember the concept of publishing target in Sitecore, right at the top bottom of your content editor desktop, there is a database selector. So you see master, core databases. Sometimes you may have extra databases. So my idea was to get this legacy database registered within XM Cloud and be selectable. But I will explain why further ahead. Another reason why it should make sense for me, especially in my local development machine, is because of the database sizes. They are huge, and running multiple databases and multiple instances is not a good option. I wanted to make as compact as possible. Here's the exercise. I will now tell you how to connect a legacy database to XM Cloud instance in Docker. You can do that with as many databases as you want, but you need to follow specific rules. As you see on the right-hand side, the selected database is called Sitecore RR. For abstract reasons, I would call this project RR. This RR notation I will be using for further naming convention here. Number one, you should get exposed SQL Server portals outside of Docker. And if you open Docker Compose of XM Cloud, at least that happens with Foundation Head Starter Kit, you will see something like ports 14,330 equals 1,043. It already is coming out of the box, this port mapping. So they expose SQL Server port 1433 outside as a port 14330. That already allows me connecting with SQL Management Studio. Now, it's important to keep version in mind. Your Management Studio should be one of the recent version. I personally use the version 19.3, equivalent of SQL Server 16, which is in fact SQL Server 2022. The other thing is you may be given the database as a data tier backup rather than binary backup. You will need to convert that, and you need to convert that to the specific version of your SQL Server. Then you will be able to follow this exercise. Anyway, since we have the port mapped, let's spin up our local XM Cloud containers. As usually we do it by app ps1. Keep waiting until XM Cloud loads. The next step, after you connect, you need to enable contained database authentication. Otherwise, you will not be able to restore the database. Here are 4 lines of the commands. You may see you need to do 2 execs followed by go. This command may be familiar from XP days. Once you get your new database in SQL Server Management Studio, once you get this configured, you restore the database. And once you get it in SQL Server Management Studio, you need to rename it to something like Sitecore.r. I make it bold in a right-hand side bottom corner. This is following our naming convention. Sitecore.r. Your name. In my case, it's RR. This will be needed to plug the database to the system, and I will show you with the next steps how to. This is naming convention. It's hidden from our eyes within a logic within XM Cloud CM container. I found a way how to do that, but there's no documentation. Believe me and follow these steps, you get it working. I apologize for a bit clumsy presentation of the code here, but there are 2 things you need to do at step 3, and this is where the whole magic happens. First of all, you go to Docker Compose override for your CM container, and what you do is you create your database and provide it with a prefix. in this format. And the same you do with a connection string file. You also add name in the same format and you provide the database name. And if you compare this on the right-hand side, if you compare both bolded names, here the initial catalog equals prefix name.rr, and at the bottom it's in connection string, it's Sitecore_RR. Don't try to find the logic here. These are internals of containers. This is just works. Make sure to follow this magic pattern. The important step is once you do that, you need to restart CM container. And just restarting it from Docker Desktop or Visual Studio Code is not sufficient. What you must do, you must remove it and recreate. So here are the commands for you to do that. Okay, let's go ahead. Here you go to CM container. What you want to do, you need to validate if previous changes were successful. This file c inetpub blah 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 connection string. This is your connection string within CM container. And if you open it within container and see the content, you will see your new connection string or strings if you added multiple databases. Because I added two, I also added legacy core in my own example. The other most important thing is you go and check environmental variables there in CM container as well. So you will see something like I quote below env, and that should be this environmental variable. Once again, I bolded the most important naming conventions here. If you get there, you are almost done. So now you need to register your database with XMCloud. How you do that? You create the config patch file. You will supply these customizations. So you see I'm creating it right in the deploy folder, but of course you may want to add this to the project permanently. This is the content of this config patch file. It looks scary. I positioned it in 2 rows. Please don't get scary. I am sharing the blog post. With the blog post, I will provide all the code and all the necessary things. But pay attention, I also bolded here this naming convention. So similar like to build in databases, you need to provide event queue provider. You need to actually register a database for the property store provider, set caches, and all the bits as you normally do. The moment of truth, you can connect to the legacy database and take a look at the very right bottom corner. I framed it with red. So you see the database is RR, double R. I switched from master to double R database. I see the legacy content. Here is it. And there is RR website as well. If you see in the URL bar, this is XMCloud. This is local XMCloud running for me locally. At this stage, I have registered external database from XP within my XMCloud local container instance. What benefits does it give me? Number one, I can now copy content using a built-in tool. If you go to control panel in your Sitecore, you will see this database tool, which is called move an item to another database. When you click this tool, you see the dialog box right-hand side. It will take the current database. I remember you, it's RRH currently. So you see RR, double R database. From the double R database, it shows me the dropdown where I want to copy it. Let's say it would be master. From RR database, I will copy to master, and this dialog will point me to further stages if I want to copy it like an item by its own, or maybe I want to use the children. Long story short, this tool is pretty powerful because it does exactly what it does. It copies the items. All the items are available for you to copy. All the items you can copy to your new XMCloud. More to say, it allows you to copy all versions. It allows you to copy media items as well. So media also works. Process blob. It also supports error handling. The biggest thing that you don't need any extra tooling to use this database. As soon as you register legacy database, you can copy it straight away. I wouldn't be myself without promoting PowerShell. I don't know any person who loves PowerShell more than I do. That is for a reason. Now let's enable Sitecore PowerShell extension. Again, I do it in the deploy folder, but later you can copy it into the register it with the project, so it will be stay permanently with you. You create something like zzz/z/spe config so that it gets processed the latest with the following content that basically enables PowerShell on your local. For the cloud, you need to assign environmental variable to allow and do redeploy, so that also enables PowerShell there. With that in mind, you will be able to run both console and ISE And you can actually start scripting. This is the screenshot of me going to console. I go to master database, did list, and here's my content. But that is not everything. I think the most power from PowerShell comes with PowerShell remoting. And the beauty of XMCloud is that you can leverage PowerShell remoting. What I'm doing, I'm creating the PowerShell remoting sample script. Right-hand side, there is a script. It accepts two parameters, the environment name and item path. By default, it's local and it returns me the value of home item. What the script does, it treats the config and from the config, it takes the values for the environment. So on the right-hand side, I showed you what the config is. So for my local database, this is the host name, this is context username, and this is remote and secret. Very simple. Provide environment, which is local, the item. The script treats config, leverages PowerShell remoting, and executes the code. So you will see it on the line 25 that starts with get item within the script block. So this line is what gets executed in a context of your remote instance, whichever you provide with the config. So far, so good, but now we need to enable a couple of things for all this beauty to work. On the right-hand side, you saw a username, which is SPE remote. This is the user with the context that script will run. So we need to create this user. Nothing special. You go to user manager, create this SPE remote user or whichever name you give to this user. Make sure it is administrator so that you get full context of operation. You're good to go. The other thing, make sure it's not locked. In my case, it's on the right-hand side, locked column is empty. So I'm good to go. Of course, we have secret. So scrolling back, you see for the local, you have remote and secret. For the dev, you have remote and secret. So this is secret kept locally. You do not check in this file into source control, obviously, but it should match something on a cloud. Go to deploy app tool, create this SP remote and secret environmental variable, and provide this same value. The magic will work. Last but not least, PowerShell remoting requires a module that runs on your host machine. Typically, you need to copy it under Windows program files, PowerShell folder. So this is incorrect. I was doing my presentation in a rush, so please ignore the second bullet point. This is incorrect path. You should go into Windows PowerShell /modules folder. There you will see SPE folder, or create it and extract the content. So where do you get this module? You get it from the official SPE project GitHub. They have releases page, and from that releases page, they provide this module for every single version. Now you can run the script which we created previously, get item field script, left-hand side. We run it with env variable, passing it local, and if everything was done successfully, you will see the fields for the home item right in the window of your PowerShell running on your local computer, not within XMCloud. Congratulations. At this stage, you will be able to move the files into the cloud to multiple environments, including your local. You can manipulate the file, you can script everything, you can do lots of things, and you can control it all from your host machine. The one thing I want to notify you is please do not forget to disable this remoting when you go in live, because remoting may be treated as quite a vector of attack. You can do it simply by deleting SPE user, or by removing these configurations, or by doing both. Okay, so at this stage, we now set up the database locally, and we set up connection to the cloud environments. We have PowerShell extension, PowerShell remoting, and we can do different manipulation. So we can command the content from legacy database in the local XMCloud, and from local XMCloud, we can move it to cloud and do whatever we want. Let's talk about migration tactics. So you need to define migration approach. How are you going to move all your data to the cloud? There is no any instruction I found. Things I heard from Sitecore was you basically do content from your local to the cloud by the means of serialization, which looks a little bit insane for the huge databases, especially media reach. What my team decided to do instead was basically leveraging Sitecore PowerShell remoting, making the packages programmatically. Let's say I have a very huge database. The PowerShell script iterates some parts of this database and creates packages in batch. And then in batch, it uploads it to the remote destination, executes this package installation. At the end of the script, the cloud environment will have the same set of content and items as the source environment. I definitely do not recommend following serialization approach, because you should not serialize your content, and that's it. But when we talk about serialization, you still have the definition items, and with your legacy code, you may get it as unicorn or as TDS. So when it comes to unicorn, it's relatively easy to convert it to Sitecore CLI, because Sitecore CLI is what is officially supported by XMCloud. When it comes to TDS, I do not know the right solution. Maybe there is something in the community sphere, you have to Google. In my case, we did redesign. Our team created serialization as it required from scratch. And more to say, we did not have access to the legacy code base. So we have to create it on our own. Another thing that you may keep in mind while copying the content is whether you want to preserve the IDs. In addition to that, if you want to copy all the versions or if you want to copy only the latest version. Preserving IDs may be really helpful when you will later test the migration. It also helps to keep your consistency. And the good news is that the built-in tool that comes from Sitecore control panel preserves the IDs while copying the content. And it also copies all the items. So you are good to go from the both aspects. When you do things with PowerShell, there is an API how you can create an item with providing its ID. So by leveraging this API, you will be able to move your items in bulk, but keeping the same ID. And I'm going to share the script, how to do that, sample scripts, in my blog post about the content migration. Last but not least, you need to think about how the content freeze would take place. How would you apply deltas? You need to assess all the things after you go live, and you should have at least strategy for dealing with both. Okay, we have all the good media library. The one advice for media library is please do the revision. Do clean up results from that revision, even before extracting the legacy database if you can. Because I never seen any media library that was not a mess. I'm doing Sitecore for more than a decade, and all the time media library appeared to be a mess. There should be some sort of housekeeping. Ideally, that housekeeping should be done by the client and by their team if they have this luxury. If not, you may facilitate this for them, suggesting to potentially run assessment scripts with PowerShell and say which media is not used, what you can clean up, maybe to get rid of the most heavy media items. But you need to do this revision even before you take the backup. The other thing is be aware of experience edge limitations. Currently, you can only publish 50 megabytes to media item or file to experience edge. If you have items of bigger size, consider removing them or using alternative DIMs or solutions. The other thing I want to say is you should migrate only reference items, and this is very sensitive and negotiable point. In some cases, editors may have unreferenced items that are sitting there for some purpose. Maybe they keep it for later, maybe they are taken away or unpublished. You need to talk with them. So if this approach is okay, you definitely want to migrate only items that are referenced. There are some other things to consider. One, redirects. Make sure you assess all the redirects that client has. It's not just something that come in with old good redirect module for Sitecore XP, which we'll know. Sometimes redirects could be external. People often use infrastructure to do like mass URL rewrites, or let's say they decommission site or move site or do some changes. And that's how they deal with these redirects by their infrastructure rather than within Sitecore. You need to assess both of them. When it comes to XMCloud, we have redirect items and redirect maps provided by Headless SXA that allow you powerful options for doing redirects. There is official documentation. I reference it here. Know your platform capabilities. You may also face some items on your content tree that refer to modules or some specific customizations. Heads up, many of the modules will not survive, if not all of them. Lots of modules utilize old XP pipelines, and they simply will not go. When it comes to stuff from the core database, like commands and these buttons, all that stuff is doable with XMCloud. But if the button relies to the command and command relies to some functionality based by the unsupported pipelines, that's not something you're going to have. Get rid of that. And of course, talk to the client, suggest alternatives. Once again, attach referenced items. you might end up with a PowerShell report, and I've done the one for my client saying that, look, here's lots of unreferenced items you have. Probably now maybe you want to do housekeeping for them. And with PowerShell extension, they do have these reports out of the box. It creates nicely looking spreadsheet. You can download this Excel file or in CSV, give it to customer and say, here are all the assets you need to work out. Now, security. You definitely can, and in many cases should copy security. And when I say security, it's roles, not users, but roles. The reason is that if you want to keep them, roles are set in the items, page items linked at the security field. If you need to keep them, if you want to keep them, copy your roles. And this tool, which I mentioned in the beginning, it does that automatically if you select the checkbox. Also, you may come across Sitecore forms. We now have composable forms with XMCloud. Well, however, it has some drawbacks. I would not call them drawbacks. Much more honest would be to say it's not yet in that stage. It's still under development. In the recent month or two, I saw lots of improvements to Sitecore forms. They now start supporting the file uploads, quite big in my opinion. Previously, forms were scoped only for specific environment, and there was no way how you can share the form between different environments of the same project. Now, this limitation has gone. But from what I know, as of today, there is no way to serialize form and deserialize form. If you create form, okay, what you will do? Even if you have a form on a legacy, you can reproduce the same form with XMCloud forms, right? But you will not be able to migrate the gathered collected content from the forms. Historically, this content was populated in this specific forms database, but with the composable forms of XMCloud, there is no user interface to see the forms, and there's no persistent storage for the forms. This is something you need to provide through the webhook once the form is submitted. You need to tell where this gathered information goes to. Probably that would be your CDP, or it may be your CRM, but you must provide the storage for that data. If you need to keep this data, you need to care manually about migrating the forms. And of course, once you complete your migration, you need to validate if everything has been done okay or not okay. The first thing to do would be sitemap comparison. You obviously have sitemap for your legacy Sitecore instance. You may have multiple sitemaps for different websites. Your new XMCloud website should have the same URLs, because once you switch the DNS, imagine the pages were bookmarked, they will get lost. For any mismatch of a sitemap, you must create a redirect. If something has moved, you must create redirect. If you move the whole section, you must create redirect map, unless you explicitly talk it through with your client who tells that we don't need to maintain redirects, we don't need to maintain this functionality. So this is number one. Number two, sitemap will tell you missing URLs. So if some URL is missing from your new XMCloud powered website, okay, this is a red flag. You must go and check why this page is missing. Hasn't it been published? Are there any problems? Does it exist at all? That's something for you to check. Beyond sitemap, you may want to create automated test scripts for doing deep compare. And by saying that, I mean, you can compare specific elements on specific pages, on specific templates, footer, header, count of images, like whatever you do. Historically, people used Selenium for automated migration, but now, since we're going into the headless world, there is a better tool. It's called Cypress. I managed to integrate this one with XMCloud rendering host, and I'm using it often, so please refer to my blogs to see how you can benefit from this one. Last but not least, manual testing should always present. No automation will do whatever your quality assurance team can. Finally, these are the reference for the tools, Razel migration tool, redirects, and that was it from my side. If you got any questions, go ahead.
There's a lot of, I would say, research done for content migration. Like, is there a way to like condense it, like making a tool of its own for migration, like a separate community-driven tool for migration?
I was thinking about that. Historically, I've done a tool called Siphon. that was doing database migrations, restores, and all the bits. I made something called Siphon Cloud. I never published it. Siphon Cloud is a very early prototype to work with XMCloud for similar things and for doing most frequent operations with this platform. I didn't give it a go because it's not yet mature, and we're all busy people. We all do deliveries, and sometimes we work more than 8 hours per day, and sometimes even more than that. So I simply was overwhelmed over the last year. And remember, I said I wrote lots of blogs. This also consumes time. I hope to come back to this tool, and the way I see that, I will create a similar plugin model like I've done for Siphon, so that you will be able to use the tool along with your PowerShell scripts, where script is effectively a plugin, so that you get all the power of user interface and same like environmental settings, secrets, everything you need to connect to your XMCloud, while your script, your plugin, is only care of business logic. So you take a script stub with all the parameters passed into, and you basically within this stub, you access everything from Siphon Cloud and just do your business. Maybe I will write these migration things myself. I think that would be the best way to do, because you will not be able to cover all the migration scenarios.
Right. I want to add that a lot of clients are coming to us like they're moving from Braco to Sitecore, or content, some headless to Sitecore. I was thinking there could be like a generic intermediate step of some kind of JSON that can be built, and then things can be moved to Sitecore Cloud. So
Yes.
it's like universal.
I have answer for you.
Sure, go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
The one thing I didn't mention in this presentation is authoring and management API. So this is GraphQL API, which you can use for importing the data. And we actually used to do that as well. For our XMCloud instance, we had some content that must be user editable. So authors must edit it. And this is a content that comes from external system. This is very frequently updated, like on a daily basis. So we export the content by the nighttime, we merge it and enhance it with what the editors have been created. So to make this functionality happen, we use author and API.
Thanks.
So you don't have to use PowerShell as a solo tool.
Got it.
Have you used the Cypress tool, Martin, or has anyone here used the Cypress tool?
No, I only saw it in action when the author presented it at MVP Summit last year. There were a couple reports of people using Razzle. I know at least 2 reported for migration to XMCloud. And you see my approach.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This might be fixed, but just a heads up in case this is still a thing. There was the tool would error out if you had 2 siblings with the same name in the tree.
Yeah.
That was one thing. Kautilya, you're aware of that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Any others that you know of?
Not right now, but there are certainly some other gotchas too.
Yeah. What about serializing content and then deserializing it? Kautilya, you're talking about, it's almost like let's almost like store that content in JSON and then pull that in, right? What if we use YAML for that instead of JSON?
Yeah,
that's what packaging does. It's still serialization.
Yeah, it's if we have to build it like a universal importer into Sitecore, like it could be JSON or YAML, because we need to extract from some source, convert it into YAML or JSON, then the authoring API can push it.
That's very cool. That's it's actually pretty clever. Does that tool the content tool from the control panel, Martin, does that disable item events when it moves content? Do you know?
I think so. I think
That's
it
awesome.
does.
That's good.
Historically, this tool has been with us for ages.
Yeah.
And the people who know this tool know it for a reason. These are people who sometimes messed web database. Or sorry, master database. Sometimes people delete important bits from the master database. And they start panicking. What we're gonna do? We don't have backups. How do we do that? Where do we get the latest version? We have package, but it's maybe a week ago. And then they realize this item has been published to web. So they can take at least the latest version of it. They will lose version history, yes, if they move to master, but at least they will get the latest published version to keep consistency. So how do they do that? They try to go packaging it, but package doesn't work. So they start thinking, and eventually they Google out this tool. They go to web database and transfer content to master.
There you go. Now everyone also got a tip of how to recover content. Awesome. Any other questions from anyone? That's very detailed, and thank you. This is actually a really good guide for everyone. I'm gonna post this video as soon as possible out there for everyone to use. Any last thoughts from your end, Martin?
There will be my blog, and I will try to post everything I told today in more details. That's where you'll find all the scripts, so you don't need to grab them from a screen, obviously. Everyone who is following my approach, you're welcome to approach me. I will give you some hints. For example, I myself, when I was testing PowerShell remoting, I found that there were some issues with PowerShell module. What happened was Sitecore XMCloud team, they take away some indexes. So when they were removing web database, they removed some indexes. And I can't say what was that exactly, but because of that, one of the functions and as dependency for XMCloud uploading files dropped. So I reported that to PowerShell team. And hopefully with the next version, they will do the revision and they will fix all the things.
Awesome. All right, Martin. Well, thanks so much. This has been a great presentation, as always, man. Your presentations are just pretty much guides, detailed, and
blessed to hear.
Yeah, it's just ready for everyone to follow. So it's very cool. Thank you. All right. Well, so this wraps up our Sitecore user group. Let's see. So we have a Sitecore symposium coming up mid-October. So the entire Sitecore, the entire week of mid-October is going to be the Sitecore week. So we'll have the Sitecore MVP Summit. By the way, who's from the current group, folks who are still on, who's going to the Sitecore symposium?
On the MVP Summit.
Or the MVP Summit, yeah.
Yeah.
Kautilya,
Yes,
going?
me.
Amir? Craig, nice. Okay, awesome. Well, we'll see each other at the event then. I'll be there from Sunday to Friday. Otherwise, we'll schedule another one in just a couple months post symposium. So I'm sure there will be a lot of things to talk about. All right, everyone. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.